presentation is also being recorded for replay purposes. And now, we're pleased to introduce your hosts for today's program, Joe Rose and Carrie Ferrara.
Woo! Sorry, guys. Welcome. It's great to have you here. For those in the auditorium, thank you for making the trek over on this rainy, drizzly day. And for those of you from Reston to California and even Hong Kong and London, it's great to have you joining us. We've got a really interesting, dynamic show today, and I think what's also interesting is how we got here. About 2 months ago, the iLead team and the Engage team, we were putting together shows on innovation, and we wanted to profile different ways our company is innovating. And somehow, by dumb luck, I ran into Carrie at an Engage function and told her what we were doing, and she said, you know what, maybe we should partner together and see if we can do something where we're collaborating and demonstrating some of the behaviors that are critical for innovation. So I have to tell you, it's been really a fun journey getting here, and I hope it's not our last one. Yeah. I don't know. Well, you're saying that now, right? Yeah, it's good.
Ask me in an hour.
Ask me in an hour, yeah. If this bombs, it's all your fault.
Yeah.
Right? So, but we've talked, this idea of innovation. Many people have different versions and definitions of innovation. Carrie, I'm going to ask you, as we've been on this 2-month journey together, what does innovation mean to you?
I think innovation is different things to different people, depending on what your circumstances. It could be something as simple as automating a process that might have been manual before, so pretty small, or it could be the next great idea that's going to sell millions of something. So I think it's all kind of relevant to who you are and what your experience is. But I do think that what we're doing is innovative. I think the collaboration within Sprint, between groups, kind of sharing this kind of information is a good definition.
Good. Well, to level set what Carrie just said in terms of a common definition, not just for us at Sprint, but really within the industry, what we wanted to do is show you a very brief clip by a futurist on innovation and CEO of FutureThink, Miss Lisa Bodell. Anybody familiar with Lisa Bodell? Several hands, okay. I had the opportunity to interview her last year and kind of her backstory and things and how she got involved in innovation. Let's roll this clip and see what her definition of innovation is. You say that everyone is innovative, and yet some people probably view it and saying, I'm not innovative.
You're innovative.
I'm not innovative.
You're innovative. Yeah.
But for those who don't have the permission to be creative or innovative, particularly at work, what coaching, what guidance would you give them?
Well, I do fundamentally believe everybody's innovative. It's just they don't know how or they don't realize that they're innovative. Well, a few things to coach them. One is, and it sounds very simple, but it's just getting your antenna up. So you're probably not innovative or don't think you're innovative because you're not given the chance to do something new. Your boss may be holding you back a little bit. It's true. It happens. You don't have the time to do something that really sparks your interest outside of work. I mean, I often tell people, do a 10 by 10. And that means every Friday before 10 o'clock, check out 10 new sites that have nothing to do with your work. Because usually when you're trying to solve a problem, it's when you're not thinking about that problem. Or when you're trying to do something at work, the best solution comes when you're not thinking about work. So you have to give people permission to do something different than work so they can come up with a real creative solution and be innovative. Creating that space, I think, is the most challenging part. So setting time for it, looking at new resources or places to go visit, talking to new people. We tend to talk to the same people all the time, so we get the same answers. Even meeting someone new in a new place. So don't go to the same coffee shop, get a new environment, and that will spark different thinking right away. So different stuff, different people, different places.
So is that one of the reasons why I typically have the best ideas on vacation?
Definitely. Actually, I'm not laughing. I think that's true. Is, you think, oh, I just want to get away from work, and suddenly you're on vacation and you're thinking about work. Because your mind is kind of, it's powering down and it's creating the space to actually come up with something new and different versus effective, efficient, and process-oriented. So if you get a great idea when you are falling asleep or just wake up or on vacation and going for a run, it's because your mind is actually thinking the way it wants to think now and how it thinks best.
So I wanted to welcome our three guests for today. We have Razia Mula from our IT department, Kevin McGinnis from product, and Eric Wolschlager from marketing. And our first speaker is going to be Razia, and she's going to talk about innovation in process.
Thanks, Karen. Can you hear me? Okay. I don't have one of those doohickeys because I don't have anywhere to hook it onto. So, practical reasons more than anything else. I walked in and Joe was like, where would you like to put this? And I'm like, nowhere. So we'll just deal with it this way. So innovation, right? For most people, and especially adults, innovation or creativity is probably some of the scariest words that they hear, because they think that they have to be the next Steve Jobs, they think they have to be Zuckerberg, or maybe even like Fareed, right, in our own Fareed at Sprint. That's not what innovation is about. Innovation is really about looking for things that change what you do to make it better, not really about, okay, I have to create something that's going to sell 5 million of something for the company. Now, it's great that we do have people like that, but most of us in our day-to-day job, that's not what our job is. Our job is to keep systems up, to test things, to create things that somebody else has thought of. But we can certainly do things with it by being creative in the way we do things. So, I mean, I have a whole bunch of quotes here, which I have to give credit to Jill Corbett on my team. She's really the creative person because she created the presentation for me. I told her what I wanted. She helped me put it together because I don't have a creative side of my brain in terms of putting pretty pictures together. In terms of creativity, and I was thinking about this, and I have to admit I got up at 2:30 in the morning, and I was like, oh, damn, I put a slideshow together, but I really don't know how I'm going to talk about it all. So I thought of my daughter, and I thought about when you're a kid, how many of you remember when you were children, you did fantasy games? Now, I'm not talking about on your Xbox or video games, but just make-believe type of things, having a make-believe friend, an imaginary friend. How many of you did that? Show of hands, right? My daughter, being an only child of a mother who's a workaholic, used to play by herself. Most of the time, she'd play board games, she'd play all kinds of things with her imaginary friend. And amazingly enough to me, she actually used to lose some of those games and get upset. I'll be like, how do you, and I'd be like, how do you lose if there isn't a real opponent next to you? But I was being honest, Mommy. So, but the thing about that is there's a difference between childlike and childish. And most of us, as we grow older, we actually lose that ability to be childlike because we think it's all about being childish, right? Because that's what we think. When the reality is, the more childlike you think, the more creative you can be, right? Now, like I said, not every one of us can draw, because that's the other thing. You say creative and people say, oh, well, now you want me to draw a picture. I can't draw a picture. I can just do stick figures. That's not what creativity is. It's about what you do in your job to be creative. Here's some things, looking at those who wants to hear actors talk. Or I like the last one. What use could the company make of an electric toy? Talking about the telephone, right? None of us would have a job now if that really happened and nobody hooked on to that idea that you could actually use a device to talk to somebody. Today, all of us live with devices that we absolutely cannot live without. I go to South Africa, I go to India, I have my BlackBerry. Well, now I have an iPhone. I have to figure out how that one works overseas. But I'm connected the whole time. My team will tell you, Razia never disconnects. Now, that's the bad thing of an always connected environment. So what did we do in enterprise testing? So I have two groups. I picked up a group last week, so I do have to give out a shout out to them. I picked up the data management team, but I also have, I guess I didn't set that right. Oh, we'll just ignore that. So enterprise testing, right? My team does testing of IT software to deliver for production. Industry standard says that, or any industry you look at talks about automation. And it says, well, the way to save money, the way to get faster is to go in and do a lot of automation. I had the functional, before I became the director, I was the manager of the functional testing team. There was another manager that had automation. And we really barely talked to each other, which was really sad, because now that I know how interdependent they are. I then got the acting director gig and was talking to the automation team, and as they were talking through things, I realized I was actually the person that was preventing us to make progress, because this is mine, don't you touch it, right? That's your objective. You go do the automation. My objective is to deliver testing for production. And as we listened, or as I took that step back and listened, it really was, oh, I have to make sure that the testing manager and the automation manager are tied at the hip. First of all, joint objective. Secondly, well, how do we get there then? So we kept talking, and it then came out, well, the way we write the artifacts for testing really don't help for automation, because we were writing those scripts every time we got a requirement in, instead of taking that script and saying, what do we need to change in it? Does it really need to change? We created components, and I'm not going to go into all the technical details because all of you will fall off to sleep. But what we did is we said, okay, how do we go ahead and do these things? And we started putting things into reusable libraries, creating components. We went in a 2-year window from a 4% automation that they were at for probably about 5 to 10 years to a 30% automation in 2 years. More importantly for me, in the space of a weekend, I can run a core regression before we go to production and ensure that I've got stability for us to go to production. We couldn't do that before, because it would take, for us to do that same thing, it would take a team of 10 to 15 people, probably about a week and a half to do the same work. So for us, that was really all about innovation. And again, like I said, we didn't go create the next great thing. All it really was is we listened, or maybe I listened and I took away the defenses, and we then said, how do we get there, right? Really, I have some extremely smart people on my team. I'll give a shout out to Fabio on my team, because he kept making me listen and say, but Razia, and I'd be, no, we're not going to do it, but Razia, and I finally listened, right? And we've made great changes. Now we continue to make changes. I've got a load and performance team that did a lot of changes in their space, in terms of whether you test everything versus what are the most important things for the company and focus only on those things. My environment team, they continually create automated processes. They do things that will make us a lot more effective. We're currently working on an initiative together with Network, in this case, on LTE devices, and how do we get the data connected between network and IT so that we can do the testing of those devices without the problems we see today. Those are all, in my view, innovation, because it's how are we going to get better so that we can deliver quality and we can deliver faster to production. Now, I have some takeaways there, right? So whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. You know, think about that. When Jill first showed me that, I'm like, I don't get it, right? Well, she said, well, that's what I'm saying, right? And then the next one was, I don't know where this thing clicks, but it doesn't seem to work. No easy button, right? It's not easy. If you think innovation or change is going to take you half a day, and you're done, no, it's a journey. It takes time. You got to take away some of the cobwebs. You got to take away things that you looked at and said, your mindset. You got to change that. You got to believe that you can partner with people. And for me, the biggest thing is you always looking to connect the seemingly unconnected, because you'll be amazed when you hear something here and you hear something there, and you start connecting the dots between them, and you figure out, oh wait, if that person can talk to that person and they pull in that person, all of a sudden you've got a new process that makes so much more sense. So with that, I'll turn you over to Joe.
Thank you very much, Razia. One of the reasons why we wanted to have different guests, you're going to hear different stories, big and small areas of innovation. But most of us are working in very small pockets of innovation. You know, we're not impacting the entire company. So I love the storytelling piece. And by the way, we'll have plenty of time to ask our guests questions here towards the end of the show. Our next guest is Mr. Kevin McGinnis. I had the opportunity to work with Kevin last year on a development program, and was really impressed by his knowledge and kind of fearlessness when it comes to creating new products, new apps, and he's kind of fun to go out with after work too, periodically. So anyway, Kevin, take it away.
I went out last night, so I'm going to sit down. No, I was thinking about what Razia said, and it's funny. I was thinking about Eric and I being guys up here talking about innovation and being childish or childlike. Sorry. I'm cheating this time. This is the first time I've ever sat up here on stage and used notes. So that's what I'm not checking my email. But this is a pretty passionate subject for me, and there was some things that I kind of wanted to articulate and make sure that I left everybody with. So I wanted to make sure I captured all of them as I went through this. I could sit here, I mean, we get 10 minutes each, right, before we get to Q&A or whatever. I could sit here and tell you guys about some of the innovations that the team has done. I'm blessed to work with a really great team, a lot of really creative thinkers, and it's really easy when my innovation is just letting them do what they do. So I'm blessed to be in the situation where we've implemented products like Google Voice, where we've done things like Sprint ID, where we've changed the way that we actually do work in the group. We've changed the way we actually are organized physically as a team, things that this company hasn't done previously. I could sit here and tell you about how we did those things and do that storytelling, but what I really wanted to do was give you guys probably some more, I would call them takeaways. Now, real innovation would be as if this thing worked. It's not going to work that way. You're right, the button's not working very well. So what I really wanted to leave you guys with were actually some thoughts and some takeaways on how you could be more innovative in your lives or in your work. And the first thing I wanted to do, you know, I'm a Lisa Bodell disciple. So I was watching her video and I was thinking, well, she just stole half my information. So I need to be better about prepping for this thing. But from an innovation perspective, what is innovation about? It's not about creating products. It's not about, necessarily what you do. It's about how you think. So for me, innovation is purely a mindset. How do you address problems? How do you think about them as, I like to say they're not problems, they're opportunities, right? That sounds real glass half full, but it's the truth. How you think about things is the real innovation, regardless of the size of the problem, regardless of what it is you're trying to solve for. And you can't put process around innovation. There are a lot of innovative processes. There are a lot of things you can do to help stimulate innovation. But it's not about a process. It's not about things you do. It's about the way you think purely. And there was a quote, one of the reasons I took notes is, where all think alike, there is little danger of innovation. So what that means to me is, I think Joe touched on this a little bit, I'm somewhat considered a misfit in my job. I'm somewhat considered a misfit in the industry a little bit, but that's because I don't think like everybody else, and I try to do that intentionally. There's some tools I'll talk about in a few minutes that Lisa has kind of taught us around how you change the way you think about things. She referenced a few of them during the presentation or during the video. That's really what this is about. That's what innovation is all about from my perspective. So it really starts with you. I know this is so cliche, but you own innovation. Don't ever let anybody tell you that I have innovation in my title or my group is responsible for innovation. That's BS. Every one of us owns innovation, and it's really about the person, and every great idea starts with a person. Now, there might be collaboration to help foster that idea, to help grow that idea, to make it better, but you own innovation. So you can't blame anybody if you're not creative. You can't say, I mean, I'm not the most creative person in the world, but there are ways to change the way you think about things, but it all starts with you. It all starts with your ownership of innovation and so on. I just realized I've got my lock screen on, so I'm going to have to unlock this thing every time I want to go to my notes. So I'm going to wing it from here. It's my contribution to innovation for the rest of the presentation. Free yourself to think. This is a big one. Lisa touched on this. You do surveys of different groups, different work organizations, and so on, and one of the things you'll hear constantly is, I don't have time to think. I'm busy doing email, I'm busy in meetings, I'm busy doing this, I'm busy doing that. This whole idea of you owning innovation, that is key. Schedule time to think. Schedule time to get away from the mundane tasks that you do and make sure that you're spending time thinking about problems and so on. It's hugely important that you free yourself from that thinking. I lied. I'm going back because a couple of these things are pretty important. Mundane tasks, mundane activities lead to mundane thinking. Some of you might have seen me walking around with people that report to me on, around campus. We'll just do the big circle. Sometimes I'll do my one-on-ones, walking meetings. I would encourage all of you, do walking meetings. Get out of the office during the workday to think about problems and to go problem solve. The more mundane the task is, Lisa talked about, great ideas happen when you're not at work. You got to remember that, and you got to figure out how to capture those ideas when you're doing, exciting things, because that's when exciting thought starts to happen and innovation happens in your mind. So you have to make sure that you're doing those things. One of the tools, she didn't talk about it, but one of the things she taught us during the Duke Leadership Program was this idea of reversing assumptions. And this is one of those huge ideas around freeing yourself to think differently. The whole premise of assumption reversal is, you think about a problem, and then you kind of write down what the assumptions are related to a solution or what the assumptions are related to the problem. And then you consciously go through each one of those assumptions and you reverse it. So the example she gives on her website, killthecompany.com, is the idea of thinking about starting a restaurant. And you go through, okay, so we got to have food, we got to have tables, we got to have waiters. You just list the assumptions of what it would take to create a restaurant. And then you go through each one of them and you say, well, do I really need food? What if it's bring your own food? Do I really need tables? No, it's a stand-up restaurant. And you just go through and you reverse the assumptions around the solutions that you're thinking about. Now, you might come up with the craziest ass idea you've ever heard, and you might think this is never going to be successful. That's fine. The whole idea is freeing yourself to think differently and using tools to kind of get yourself there. So that's one of the things that she kind of pushes that I'm a big believer in. This was my favorite one to type. You are average. So my message is you're all ordinary. No. What I mean here is you are and we heard this recently at Big KC, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So think about that. And, unfortunately, I have to spend a lot of time on the internet around creative people because all my friends are, dull as grass. They would kill me if they heard that. It's true, though. So figure out how to get around, I think Lisa talked about, going around people, introducing yourself to new people or being around people that you're not usually around. I would encourage you all to think about where you get your thoughts from, because it's the people you're hanging around with. So that doesn't necessarily mean fire your friends. That doesn't necessarily mean, go home and I'm not talking to my spouse tonight. I would not encourage you to do that. What I would encourage you to do is find new sources of information, find new sources of interactions, do those types of things. There's a lot of opportunities there for you to figure that out. Twitter. I would encourage, if you're not on Twitter, you don't have to tweet. You don't have to participate. But go find innovative people. Go find, there's a brain zooming. They tweet out several times a day just creative ways to think about problems and so on. So I would encourage you to interact with different creative sources on the internet and in different places. If you're familiar with TED Talks, listen to TED Talks on a regular basis. They're amazing. They're like 15-minute speeches on different ways of thinking about the world and different solutions that are out there and so on. Whether it's a solution that applies to your day job or not doesn't matter. It's just, again, it's just different ways of thinking about issues, different ways of thinking about problems. I would encourage all of you, to do those types of things. Whether you can hang out with those people or you just absorb what other people are saying, same net effect, right, at the end of the day. And then the last one I wanted to talk about is really this idea of fail forward. I've, for years, have said fail fast. Right? Don't be afraid of failure. Fail fast, adjust, learn, and do it again. I've changed that recently to fail forward. Same net effect, same concept, right? Don't be afraid of failure. But the idea of failing forward is if you learn something from a failure, it's not failure. And that's really at the core of what I believe innovation to be about, is doing something, acting, learning from it. If it doesn't work, you learn something. It doesn't work. Do it another way, right? But fail forward, and always think of those things. This comes. Last time I was here, we talked about risk taking, and to me, innovation is, in a certain extent, in a certain respect, is about risk taking. So, how do you make sure that you mitigate risks when you think about risk taking? How do you make sure that you're doing those things proactively to challenge yourself, to think differently, to do differently, to act differently? So, don't be afraid of failure. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of wrap up with was this, something I've been doing it for a really long time, and nobody had ever told me what it was, and I never really kind of recognized it as a behavior. Everyone who you report to is going to hate me for saying this. But stealth innovation. There was a Harvard Business Review wrote an article. There was an article published in Harvard Business Review a month before last, maybe. Google it. Stealth innovation at HBR. And the idea, it's not about stealth innovation from external sources. It's not about hiding the goods and, this idea of NDAs or, I'm not going to tell anybody about this product and we're going to announce it to the world and everybody's going to be blown away. Stealth innovation is actually hiding things internally. It's actually the idea of go do it. Don't ask permission. Go do it. Go make it so successful that by the time you ask for permission, it's working. And so it's really hard for someone to say no when what you're talking about is already working. I will tell you 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be, yeah, keep doing that. So this idea of stealth innovation is something that, to me, fits in this fail forward category of act, take risks, do things that you think will improve the situation, improve the systems, improve the process, improve your life. Do those things, think outside the box, and use some of the tools that Lisa has on her website or some of the other things that you'll hear, and I think some of the things that will probably be sent out to you guys after this is over. So really that's my take on it. So I don't know if, Gary?
Just go one forward. So thank you, Kevin. I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, who is Eric Wolschlager. And I'm lucky enough to get to work with Eric on a regular basis. And I think he might be insane, but in a really good way. And hopefully some of that will rub off on all of you.
All right. Thank you. Wow. I mean, so honestly, I could probably just say what they said, and I'll just be done here because I'm nodding my head and violently agreeing inside my mind. And so it was a really cool setup. There we go. So Lisa stole my idea too, which is okay. Everybody should be advocating for this. So innovation, in my mind, again, every single person has an idea. And in fact, every one of you guys has an idea right now. Maybe it's pull Eric off stage or something like that. But true innovation happens when you take action on that idea. For those of you that don't know, I'm the reason that you send thank you cards every day or every month. And so I think it's a good story. Whether or not you agree or disagree with the program, what it tries to accomplish, I'd like to talk about the inception of it. And as I looked back, thinking about what you guys had just said, listening to people like Lisa, I found 4 key things that I think truly innovative people do to bring innovation forward. So the first thing that people do who are really innovative is they think about problems and solutions. And I think I heard this from both of these speakers up here too. It's always focused on the customer. What's the problem that we're trying to solve, and is there a creative way to solve it? As it relates to Thank You Thursday, I was a Sprint store rep. I worked in the field. For a couple years after that, I begged my way into a corporate job, and for some reason, Chris Jackson in product development hired me. And when I sat down behind my laptop, and actually after Dan Hesse had rolled in, he kept saying, improve the customer experience, improve the brand, and generate cash. And I looked at that improve the customer experience objective, and I was like, how am I supposed to do that sitting behind a laptop? And when I was in the sales field, it was easy. I could smile a little bit bigger. I could apply a service credit to somebody's bill and make their day a lot better. They'd be real happy. I got home from work one of those nights, shuffled through the mail, and one of the letters there was from my grandma. And it was just a simple, hey, Eric, hope all is well. Just thinking about you. I want you to know I love you. Really proud of you for moving to Kansas City. And that mail changed my day. And as I started to think about it, I'm like, I've got this big problem at work where I don't feel connected to the customer, and probably the average employee at work is feeling like me. Wouldn't it be insane if I could send a letter to a customer who's been at Sprint just as long as I have and unknowingly paying my paycheck? I want to give them a genuine thank you. There we go. The second thing that really innovative people do is they find a network of people who can do stuff that they can't. The biggest misnomer about innovative people, entrepreneurs, as I've gotten to know a lot more of them, the biggest misnomer about these people is that they're lone wolves and that they can do everything on their own. In fact, I heard both these speakers say that. I am crazy. I think of really weird things and have really crazy ideas, but I couldn't do it without going to Carrie and bouncing things off of her and talking about, hey, this is crazy. Can you help me settle it down a little bit so it's something that would work? I didn't know how to go pull customer names out of the database, so I worked with Chris Karpowicz in CRM, and she obliged and helped me a lot. I found all these people who could help us execute. In fact, dragging about 19 of them with me, kicking and screaming, into a small cafeteria here on campus, and we wrote that first set. In fact, Kristen Starr's up there. You were one of the first with this there. I did bring donuts. That's true. It helped. The third thing that really innovative people do, and Kevin mentioned this too, this is that stealth innovation idea. They just do it. They put their paycheck on the line. They bet that they're going to be right, knowing that they have a really meaty problem and an interesting solution that's going to solve a real issue in the marketplace, and they go build it. And so we didn't ask for permission. We went, all 20 of us, sat down and started handwriting notes, sent them out to customers, just waiting to see what would happen. Which leads into the fourth point. We failed on that first time out. Kevin talked about failing forward. That's exactly what we did. In fact, is that Melinda there too? Yeah. Melinda, I don't know if you remember this or not, but this is a few years back now. After that first writing session, I brought 200 note cards with me, 200 customer names, and 20 people. And we sat down, and everybody was required to go write out their notes. And Melinda walks up to me afterwards, and she goes, hey, Eric, that was a blast. But 10 notes is way too much. My arm hurts. I had another person come up to me and said, Eric, this was cool, but I have no idea what to write. Nothing's coming out right now. And so I went and looked up what a really good thank you note looks like and wrote out a form letter, very similar to one that you still see today, and let people copy that. And so it's this constant cycle of doing all these things that really leads to innovation. So I'm going to shift real quick here. I'll pivot, if you will. The thing I hear a lot from people very close to me is like, Eric, that's really cool. That sounds really nice. We agree you should fail a lot so you can learn stuff. But if there was a whole company full of people like that, it'd be total anarchy. And, to an extent, they're completely right. So how do companies solve for this? Well, has anybody heard of like Google's 20% time? So when you calculate that out, Google says for their engineers and their most innovative people and anybody who wants to participate, 1 day a week, a whole day every single week should be dedicated to doing something that's not related to your job. Companies like Yahoo have what they call hack days, or they build hackathons. And so for 24 hours, they lock people in a room, they shove beer and pizza underneath the door, and they wait to see what comes out. And typically in both these situations, the ideas are insane. In fact, most of them aren't viable. Probably a few of them would work realistically in the marketplace. But the truly crazy ideas inspire things that could be, solving problems differently. And so we don't have a forum for that here at Sprint. And I'm not asking that we take a day off every single week and go create crazy ideas. In fact, even though I'd like to, I'm not proposing that we do a 24-hour hackathon once a quarter. I'd like to start simple. And so in my effort to name a program after every single day of the week, Hack Friday is my second. I got 3 more and then I'm out of here. Hack Friday is an opportunity for anybody, and I'm inviting anybody. All I can do, guys, is I can stand in front of a crowd and talk. I'm pretty good with PowerPoint. I can write. I don't have coding skills. I don't have the ability to design something beautiful, but I know a whole bunch of people who can. And the thing about every single one of you out there, you each have an individual skill as well that is crazy enough to work when paired up with multiple people. So I'd like to invite anybody who's interested to come join me next Friday. I'm going to take the day on, and I'm going to go work on something else that matters besides my day job. And my boss right now is cursing me if he's on the webcast, I'm sure, this stealth innovation. So anybody else that wants to join me, we're going to hack the business. I want to think about gamification in the terms of the customer experience. So could we somehow build a program that our customers, instead of just going through their contract and waiting till it expires and then thinking about re-signing another one, could we build a game around that life cycle? I've got some ideas, and I'm sure a few of you do too, but how do we put those into action? If you dial **Wooly, W-U-L-L-Y, from your phone right now, you'll get a funny message from me. But then you also get a text message right after that with an Eventbrite website where you can actually log in and register to join me next Friday. So I encourage everybody to come. We'll welcome anybody. I don't care what you think you can or cannot do. We'll find out and we'll push it to the limits. So thanks for the stage. I appreciate it.
Good deal. That's good. Nice job, everybody. Different stories, different ideas. What we thought we'd do right now is I'll ask a few questions, some pull-through themes, and then turn it over to you to ask much better questions than I'm going to ask, okay? So start formulating those. And then, by the way, we've got a little special surprise at the end of this that Carrie's going to take you through. So one of the themes that I noticed that was pulled through all of you is this idea of essentially getting away from your work. And then it's kind of what Lisa said at the beginning. Talk to us a little bit about that. Are there certain things that you do that you say, oh, I'm not going to think about work so I can be better at work, I could be more creative? Or, what's your mantra of sorts?
I don't know whether we really, in IT, we do that, unfortunately. Partly because we have this crazy thing about billable hours. You'd think we work at a law firm the way we track hours. But I think it stymies innovation, because the first thing you tell somebody about going to do, the Hack Friday, for instance, I bet you I'll get at least 5 people on my team that will say, so where do I charge my time for that? Right? Because we have to be capitalized. We can't be OPEX, right? We got no money, and I'm partly to blame for that. I have a $4 million OPEX budget, and I have a large team. How do I do those things that are creative when people are told you've got to charge to projects, and then you're also told, well, you've got to be ethical in how you bill your time. So we have a challenge that we have to work through. But I think the best thing in the morning, before you start your day, I used to always, first thing in the morning, grab my phone and look at whether my boss sent me a message. Now it's you take the first 20 minutes of the day, just think about what you're going to be doing. The shower is one of the best places to think. And you'll be amazed at the number of ideas that come in. I now, unless I heard a big loud noise at night, which is the text message telling me that there was a production outage, I don't look at my phone till after I get ready in the morning. And then, because I use that time to plan my day and think about what I'm going to be doing and maybe think about different ideas. And I think the best time that I do, and I think it was Kevin or somebody who said that, is when you're on vacation. Mm-hmm. Right? My team will tell you they get more emails from me on, well, maybe we could do this and maybe we could do that when I'm on vacation. I got nothing else to think about. So, so I think that's what we do, or I do at least with my team.
But I thought what was interesting about you, Razia, is that in your story about innovation, you actually realized that you were the impediment to innovate. And not everybody can do that. Not everybody can call themselves out and say, wait a minute, it's me that's causing the bottleneck.
Yeah, I need to quit telling everybody that. I'm giving myself a bad rap here, but it really was, right? And it's a hard thing to admit, right?
Yeah.
I was the reason, and we recognized it, fixed it, and moved on.
That's cool. It's similar to what you were talking about in Fail Forward. How do you all, Kevin? How do you create a culture, within product that allows for innovation?
Wow, that's a big question, and that's the hardest thing to change as it relates to innovation or it relates to change or building anything. You can use technology, you can use money, you can use resources, you can build a whole lot of really cool stuff, but the hardest thing to build is a culture. For me, I think it starts, it has to start two ways, not one, two. It has to start at the top, and it has to be organic from the bottom. And you have to find ways to make that happen. So when I say it starts at the top, you have to be very clear about giving permissions to people to do things differently. Dan did a really good job of that when he showed up. When the guy shows up and says, all right, jeans and Vans, right? It's like, I was at a meeting today, this morning, down at Kauffman Foundation, which is where I go to get away and to think differently. But I was there with a bunch of my corporate peers, talking to a bunch of people from Silicon Valley who are checking out what's going on in Kansas City. And the question, I got, do you always dress like that? It's like, every day. I mean, that's a cultural thing that starts to occur, that you kind of free you free yourself of some boundaries that you had in your mind about dress code, right? It sounds simple, but those are the types of things that we got permission from the top to do something differently, and then it just kind of organically. I saw something really cool. These cats did it not too long ago, where it was like Dress Up Fridays or something crazy like that, and they were like coming in, business suits or whatever. It was like, that's funny, right? But that's it's cool, right? So creating a culture to me is the hardest part. I don't know that I have a really crisp answer on how to do it, other than it takes persistence. You have to consistently convey the same message over and over again. You can't try it once, and if you fail, you give up. That's the hardest part about culture. I do want to go back to your first question, though, real quickly.
Yes.
Anecdotally, I remember very vividly when I was a student at KU, the day that I discovered you can think differently by doing something different. I was walking home from class the same way I walked home from class every Tuesday. And I walked by the theater, and I saw, nobody repeat this, right? And people on the web, don't say this. There was a Winnie the Pooh was playing in the theater. And I was like, well, I'm a big Winnie the Pooh fan. And I walked in the theater. I'm an Eeyore guy, right? I walked in the theater, sat down, and just checked out the play. And first play I'd ever been to in my life. And I literally walked out of there thinking, all right, I'm going to take some different courses next semester. I'm going to do, I changed my major after that. Not a theater major, but still, it was like this event that I just did something different on my way home, and all of a sudden I was like freed myself to think differently. And so now what I do, and Tina can talk about this or can tell you guys about this afterwards, but there's a thing called 1 Million Cups down at Kauffman Foundation every Wednesday morning from 9 to 10, where 2 startup businesses in Kansas City present to just an open forum. There's like 200 people that show up every Wednesday, all kinds of people. I love going not because I want to hear the startups. Every now and then there'll be one that's applicable to my day job, but it's really cool to just be around people who are thinking differently and to sit there and say, I'm going to think about my work differently because I'm in a different environment and I'm listening to people talk about their work and their challenges and entrepreneurs that Eric was referencing, and it just gives me a chance to come back and think about my day job much differently. And I would encourage all of you, walking meetings, just change your environment, do those types of things. And that's, back to your first question, I mean, that's how you change the culture, is you start doing it. That's why I say the bottoms up thing. Start doing something differently. And the people around you will start doing things differently. And pretty soon you've changed the way work happens around you and you've changed the culture. It's kind of that easy.
So just do it is kind of what I hear.
Amen.
And you've said that as we were prepping for this. Where do you get all your energy, Eric? I mean, how do you, for those of us who are not so creative, I'm thinking, other than, Eric's going to offer bow tie lessons, how to dress up on Fridays or whatever after this. How, for those of us who say, I'm not creative or I don't have a, innovative idea, how do you allow yourself to be a vessel for that stuff? What guidance would you give people?
I have no idea. I mean, when you guys are saying how do you escape, normal, I never live in normal. I feel like I'm kind of always out there, which I get, I get a lot of good and bad feedback about, which, that's one way or another. But my energy, I don't know where it comes from, I'll be honest with you. I have this fire burning in me about this company, though. I sold Sprint phones before the camera phone came out. It launched while I was a retail rep. As I was moving in through the sales field, I saw just Vision launch, 3G happened, and I moved into corporate and the iPhone came out. I feel like I was here during the boomtown times of mobile, and this industry just gets me fired up and excited naturally. And then as it relates to transferring that passion, I would hope my team could speak to this too. I like surrounding myself with those guys, and hopefully I transfer off to them, but they also bring me just all kinds of new insights, maybe a little closer to earth sometimes when it needs to be. But I don't know. If you don't have this fire in you, come hang out with me. I'll have a beer with anybody. It'll wear off.
Well, it was very cool prepping for this because after we would meet with Eric and Kevin and Razia, we were so pumped up to take ideas back into our day jobs as well. So I appreciate the passion from all of you. We do want to open up for questions and answers. I know there were several pre-submitted questions. I think we've got some instructions for those watching online on how to ask a question.
There are several ways to ask a question. If you're watching via Sprintcast, simply select the Q&A tab to the right of the video and type your question in the questions field. For those in the audience, please raise your hand and wait for a microphone. Our first question is from online. What are the hurdles to innovation that we should watch out for?
Who wants to take that? Kevin, how about you? Do you mind?
Hurdles in innovation. Naysayers, skeptics, don't take no for an answer. That's, to me, the biggest hurdle to innovation is people who don't believe. And that's not to say, crazy ideas, that you take all of them. But the last thing that innovation can afford to have is, challenging a concept and challenging the premise of a how or a why, those types of things, fine. Saying can't, I tell them I have 3 teenage daughters, and can't is not something you say in my house. And that's, to me, like one of the biggest hurdles to innovative thinking is people who are like, oh, you can't do that. Why not? Right? Why not? Absolutely you can. And so to me, that's like one of those things you always got to look out for. And this goes back to, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. If you're hanging out with a lot of people that say can't, shouldn't, don't, unless you're like a skydiver and you go every afternoon, which I would not encourage. I would say can't, won't, shouldn't. Those are the kind of people that you got to really contemplate. If you want to change your life for the better in general, you got to kind of watch out for those kind of things. So,
I'd add my quick math equation of ideas plus action. Action is the biggest inhibitor to innovation. There's this weird myth around here that you need permission to go to the bathroom, and you don't. Now you've got to consider the risk of what you're going to go do, which I did right now when I just took Friday on. Next Friday, I might be all by myself, and nobody else will show up. But I'm doing something about it. I have this crazy idea, and I'm going to go do it. And that's the biggest inhibitor to innovation, in my opinion.
For me, I think a lot of it is you get the not my job. What? Oh, you didn't hire me to be innovative. You hired me to write a piece of code. Or it's, I think that's really the biggest one. And I had another one, and I'll think about it later. Let you know.
Yeah.
I want to play off what Eric said and what Razi just said. It's not my job, really. You all work for Sprint, right? It's like Eric said, improve the customer experience. How do I do that? How do I do that? How do I do that? We came up with a good idea. I want to make sure you guys all heard what he's talking about next Friday. Hack the business. This isn't about a hackathon. Like if you're a coder or you're going to build an application, maybe you are, but this is hacking the business. This is ideas, idea generation. So for anybody in this audience or anybody watching right now that doesn't get it, what he's talking about doing is come out of your job and do someone else's job. Play their position for a while. For a day, you get to be the idea person. You get to be the one who solves, the business problem he's talking about. And that, this idea of it's not my job. I hate that. Right? Play your position, play it well, but fill gaps. If there's a gap, do it. take action, seriously.
Oh, I did think of it. It's tied to, but we've always done it this way. It's not broken. Like, damn it, but it is broken if somebody's looking at it and saying it's not fast enough, it doesn't do what you need it to do. Maybe it worked 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. We've changed so much as a company in 6 years. We should be changing our thinking to go with that. We should be changing some of our processes to fit the new world we're in. But we keep doing the same things over and over again. And then we wonder why nothing's changed. Mm-hmm. Because we're always expecting somebody else to make the change. We're expecting somebody to tap us on the shoulder and say, you go make that change. And I totally agree with that stealth innovation. Go do it, right? Go do it, and yeah, you may get a little bit shouted at because, Razia, the first question will be, so where did you charge the time for that, right? But go do it, right? Because if it looks good, you look good with it. If your team does something, as a leader, you look good at it, right? Sometimes it'll fail. So what? The biggest piece of failure is not that you failed, but that you learn from it, and Kevin talked about that as well. If you're not learning from what you failed at, then it really was a wasted effort, and it really was squandering an opportunity that you could have taken advantage of.
That's a good point. I think we have a question in the audience over here.
I do. It's around stealth innovation, actually. So for individual contributors, how do you recommend that we overcome budget challenges as part of the stealth innovation process, as well as gaining mind share of those folks that we would need to be included in maybe that thought process or activity when it's not a direct word down, I guess, initiative for them to participate in?
It's a great question, and I would say that, regardless of what you do, there's always certain the bumpers in life, or the barriers, and the kind of the boundaries that the pragmatic side of what we do. So budget challenges is one of those, right? We're a budget constrained company right now, have been for a while, but that doesn't mean you can't innovate. There are ways. That's one of those reversing assumptions thing. We don't have enough money. Well, what if you did? What would you do, right? And then you come up with the idea. The other thing I would say about that, and the idea of like gaining mind share, or the idea of kind of if you believe in something, and I see this a lot, it's much easier to get mind share than you think it is. And I know that's that's bullshit. It's true. If you believe in it and you go talk to people, they will see your passion. They will feel it. And maybe you have to go talk to 10 people to get one person to jump on board with you. Great. Go talk to 10 people. Don't bounce the idea off one person, have them go, no, I don't want to do that. Okay. Fail forward, go talk to the next person, right? And just continue to socialize your idea. This guy's a champion at it, by the way, of finding people who will agree with some crazy idea he has. And the next thing you know, he's got 20 people in a cafeteria writing thank you notes to to customers, right? For me, it's this: be action-oriented and refuse to take no for an answer, and think through the problems in a creative way. That's what innovation is really all about.
I have to tell you, I can't do thank you notes at home watching TV anymore, because I start to get into, so who do you think killed the butler? I think, it's like, so what we've done is in our staff meetings, we start to do our thank you notes and try to multitask and listen.
Yeah,
so.
And to pile on what everybody said here again, it's that network thing. And the origin of Thank You Thursday, too, one of the coolest things that it did was eventually got 350 Sprint employees from all corners of the company in one cafeteria that at the time was shut down. That's how bad the company was at that point. And I sat across the table from an attorney who I had never met, next to somebody who was doing care ops, next to somebody in sales, and that's how you go get stuff done. Who are you surrounding yourself by? Because if you're in product and you're only spending time around product people, you're going to come up with ideas just like them. It's the average thing. But
all with product people.
No, I'm just using an example. It's because I saw Kristen again, so I just think product. But if you're in marketing and you're only sitting around thinking with other marketers, chances are you're going to come up with a really innovative sales process or nil. So I'd say surround yourself with other people. Go find them.
Yeah, that's cool.
We have a question online, Joe. Is Sprint interested in innovating with third parties? And if so, how do we do that innovation? And how do, I guess, and a follow-up question to that is, how do employees internally, is there a way for them to submit ideas through an online tool?
Yes. We have been, yeah, somebody on my team asking questions. We are absolutely interested in innovating with third parties. It's when we talk about, for years, talk about open, we talk about, product strategies. Dan talks about our relationships with VC, venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. As a capital constrained company, as an OpEx constrained company, we can't afford to do all the really cool things we would like to do. So we lean into third parties. There's a saying that's like, no matter how many people you have in your organization, there's always smarter people outside. And it's not a detraction from the people you have in the company. It's a fact. There's always more people on the outside of your organization, so you have to lean into that innovation. You have to lean into that thinking. The second part of your question is a really good question I don't have an answer to. Where do you submit ideas? I know there was, I'll follow up on this one and try to get this back through the team. But I know there's an opportunity funnel. I know that there's some things that we're trying to do to capture ideas and bring those back into the group. We'll get you back the answer to that one specifically.
That's being developed. It's not quite there yet, but we do have a resource for individuals to submit ideas in Sprint Space. If you search innovation, we're going to continue this conversation on Sprint Space, and you can ask your questions there. And then as soon as this innovation portal to submit ideas is finished being developed, we'll submit them.
Or bypass that and come to Hack Fridays next week, and we'll build it. And I'm not kidding. Like, seriously, all that process stuff, that's great.
Right on.
Come and build it. Stop talking about it. Let's do it.
Hey, Eric, in the spirit of that, there's lots of questions on the online here trying to understand exactly the process to get that. So if you could kind of explain the step-by-step process for Hack Friday, it would be greatly appreciated.
So you want, like, to run a show for the day, or how to sign up?
How to sign up.
Oh, perfect. Okay, because I don't have a clue how it's going to run yet. No, I have some ideas. I have an agenda. It's pretty well put together for me. So I'm going to work on getting a link out there, distribute as much as possible. The easiest way to do it, if you're sitting in front of your mobile phone right now, open up the dial pad, these still make phone calls, and dial ** WULLY. You'll get a snarky message from me in the earpiece, and you'll get a text message directly back that will have the link. It's hackfriday.eventbrite.com.
And more to come on that. That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
I want to bring Carrie back up, and gosh, I'd love to ask questions and have people ask questions for 30 minutes or so, but I'm going to turn the controls over because we want to respect your time.
Okay. So we had the idea of a challenge. We wanted to give you all some way, some vehicle of getting involved and practicing innovation to benefit Sprint. So we came up with the idea of a challenge, and that challenge is that we would like to, leaning on our telecom roots, in 160 characters or less, tell us your innovation story. This can be something that you've done that was a success or a failure. Sounds like that would be welcome. Or it can be an idea, something around innovation that you've had experience with. And we want you to do this on a new page that we've put out on Sprint Space, and it's the innovation page. So just search for innovation within Sprint Space. And as an incentive, we will put your name into a drawing for a new Samsung Note 2, which is kind of cool, very popular device. And the entry deadline for this is Friday, May 31st. So go out there, tell us your stories. It'll be a fun, exciting way to kind of hear what other people are saying and also get involved and maybe get some ideas.
And they can upload photos or videos of what they're doing as well?
Yep. Anything that you can do on Sprint Space, you can do in this space. Meaning I don't know for sure.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you. Can they enter the contest as well?
Sure.
Right. Okay.
I'll have to get some new pants big enough to hold that phone.
Several of our guests today mentioned the innovation tools from Lisa Bedell and others. If you type innovation into your browser in iConnect, it'll take you to some really cool tools that if you're a manager of people, you can facilitate with your teams, or if you're working, coming up with the next great idea. you can leverage some of these tools. There are also videos, testimonials of various individuals at Sprint in their experience of innovating and what they've been doing and how they've done it and how they failed and so forth. So check out these resources, and it will be a very evergreen, iterative kind of thing. But really, we want to hear from you and what you're doing. And Sprint's got a heritage of innovation, and we want to continue to leverage that. And with that said, I wanted to say thank you to you, the audience, for joining us in person and online. And let's give it up for some great guests today. Really well done. And Carrie, it's been great partnering with you. I hope we can do this again. It's been part of the spirit of innovation is collaboration, and you've got a great team. So good luck this year, and hopefully we'll get together later on. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you later.
To a children